So again, entitled Going Mobile in the Oil Patch. I hope to give everyone involved here today and everyone watching in the future some good information to help energize your business and just get you started using mobile with Enverus. So today's presentation and demo is really going to kind of focus on a set of questions here. Number one, how can I get a snapshot of today's oil and gas activity in the oil patch? What are some ways to find growth opportunities around that activity? And then this one's more so for the oil field services community, but also applicable to anybody in E&P operations or really just anybody who wants to drive out to these rigs or other sites that we have in our app. So I'll talk about some best practices for using the app, the rigs app specifically for getting driving directions and using routing. So I'm going to do or answer those three questions really in a slideshow. And my goal is really to help address problems and scenarios that are pervasive throughout the industry. And I hope to do that just simply by using our mobile solutions. But I just want you guys to know that there are obviously a lot of other deeper workflows, such as place well analysis, forecasting and production data analysis, and other subsurface and geologic kind of workflows that you can get with our specialty modules and our web platforms like Prism. So it's not all just a slideshow. There's a couple other questions I want to actually answer and address with a live demo, which is always risky, as all of you who know have done that know. But I will do that, and I'll show how do I use our Virtual Scout and our reporting to target specific activity using an AOI, an area of interest. So the last question I hope to answer is how can I process through all this information? Because really, our apps provide you a ton of data, right? So you really need to kind of filter that down and just know how to process through all of it. So you get bombarded not only by our apps and data in them, but news sites and other companies as well that you get information from. So I think these two questions are, really all five questions are really applicable, but these two questions probably target a little more the E&P side of the business. Those first three, probably more the OFS and midstream side, but obviously E&P can get, good information out of finding where activity and opportunities are as well for a variety of reasons. And I do believe the financial analysts out there can also get some information from these. So those are the five questions I hope to answer in the demo and presentation and demo. And then if we have time, what I will actually do is spend a couple minutes on what's the future hold for mobile, not only at Enverus with our short and long-term roadmap, but just kind of in general, what trends are we watching? All right, let's get started. How can I get a snapshot? So you see a screenshot there of the rigs app. And if you kind of, divide this into a kind of a top half and bottom half, that top half really what we call tiles there. We've got permits, rigs, frac crews, and you can kind of slide over and see well pads and ducts as well. And slide it back. Really what you're getting there is you're getting the current count, and you're getting also a change, a daily change, and a trend line. So this information is all refreshed twice daily at 9:30 in the morning, at 6 p.m. So you're really getting current snapshots of what's going on just by those five tiles right there. I'll talk a little bit about how breakdowns by region, by basin, and how you can view all this data on the map as well in a few slides later. Bottom half, pretty self-explanatory, prices at a glance. This information is not real time. It's updated every 20 minutes, but that's current to keep an idea on how the market's moving, unless, of course, you're trading. And just not so much how to keep tabs on activity, but just a little shout out to our YouTube channel there. Lots of good training videos available there on demand. If you tap that view button that's on the main dashboard, it'll take you to an in-app version of YouTube, and you can watch a lot of content there. So let's talk about breakdowns by region, by basin, and on the map. This is really powerful, I think. What I'm showing here in this first slide is by region, just for rigs and permits, and you can kind of see the table there. It makes sense. All the regions broken out by rig and permits. You can toggle that over to frac crews and well pads as well. By basin, similar thing, but this is really valuable information for people who are working in specific regions, obviously. If you tap on where it says on map on those first two screens, it'll take you over to the map view, and it'll actually turn everything on, show you the quick toggles at the top, rigs in blue there, permits in yellow, ducks in purple, and then you have frac crews and well pads there, indicated by a truck and a shovel. Those aren't turned on this particular map. but I'll probably show you some of those later in the demo. So in the realm of activity, we also have deals for sale and asset transactions going on. This is globally. The first two screens on the left, they're really showing you our deals for sale and asset transactions in the US. I've kind of zoomed into, looks like the Permian there, and I'm highlighting a particular deal for sale there in green, and you can see kind of a summary pop up on that first screen. If I actually tap on that pop up, it gets me into the deeper dive, what we call card view. And this is a card view in the middle there of a transaction that happened. And you can kind of scroll through that bottom section, and there's a lot. This is actually a relatively short one that I'm showing here. Some of these you scroll through, there's several pages worth of content you can read and lots of source docs. There's only 2 source docs on this particular transaction, but I've seen them with hundreds. So that's the US side of the business. And then globally, we have scouts all over the world, lots of them over here in the UK, actually. And I'm highlighting the Gulf of Mexico there and some asset transactions in our global scouting article network that you can get content on. You can filter down. Same kind of similar approach. If I tap on that, I'll go ahead and get a card view. So that's really fast way to kind of get a snapshot of what's going on activity-wise around the world or in a particular region where you work and live every day. So how do I actually cull through all this and find new opportunities? That's my second question. I think of this as search and filter, and just getting in and kind of a little bit deeper analysis within the app rather than just kind of viewing some of those counts and things and features on the map. You're kind of digging in a little. So the first 2 ways there, text search and voice search, are what I'm going to actually show you in some slides, but I'll demo those bottom 4. Those are a little more, I don't want to say advanced, but a little more steps involved, kind of harder to show in slides. But a lot of different ways, essentially, to drill down to what you need. So let's talk about that first one, text search. This is really a 2-step process. Couldn't get any easier. If you're on the map, you see that magnifying glass at the top. You just tap on that. Simple as that. I'm searching for enzyme here. And you can search for any number of terms. It goes through and filters or searches through all of the attributes across all data sets. I just happen to have rigs, permits, and ducks on. And you see when I actually type enzyme there in the second, in the little pop-up box that comes when you hit that magnifying glass, you can see it's filtered down to only those rigs for enzyme. And you can see a little permit kind of sneaking out there in yellow. I believe there's also a duck under there. If I were to turn rigs off, I would see, permits clearly and ducks as well, because they're overlapping. But that couldn't get any faster. 2-step process to kind of really quickly narrow down to some data. If you're working with enzyme or in a particular area, you can actually get some leads that way. This is another way. It's very similar, except instead of typing it, you actually just tell the app what you want it to do by pressing that microphone. I'm going to say a bit like Siri, a bit like Alexa, but not quite as advanced. There's only, it'll give you some syntax when you actually press that microphone button and kind of tell you in various formats you need to say some things, but it works pretty well. So show me all Robinson rigs, shows me these 3 rigs. That's in an effort to be kind of hands-free for a lot of our workers that are out in the field for safety reasons. So that's those first 2. Like I said, I'll demo those bottom 4 in a second. Third question, this gets a little deeper into the app. I would say that in the OFS community, 90+% of the usage comes around these driving directions and routing. And so I really want to kind of dig in here a little bit on this question. So we've got something called single point driving directions. Just I want to drive to 1 rig or 1 permit or 1 duck. Not yet available for frac crews and well pads. I have a real strong hunch that we will be doing that this year, just because we get so much request for it to get driving directions to those frac crews and well pads. So we'll probably add that pretty soon. But it's really 4 easy steps. So the first step, tap on one of those map markers. So you've using search or however you got to what you want to drive to, tap on that map marker, and you will see a pop-up. You see what looks like it's a street sign, basically a green street sign with a right arrow, right turn arrow, indicating if you tap on that, you'll actually go to step number 3. I want to point out a little hidden nugget, though. If you actually tap on the words, it'll take you to basically an interim step that is a card view, because maybe you're not exactly sure that's the one. That was a pretty self-explanatory name there, but maybe it's the, H&P 248, and you're not sure if you're supposed to go to the H&P 428 or 248. So you can come in here and you can kind of verify by API number, lease name, well number, a lot of other data, and you can scroll through that. You can also call the operator or call the contractor from here by tapping those phone icons. And you can create scouting and notes here by tapping on that. It looks like a binoculars. You tap your own notes in there and save it. So if I am at this step and I tap on directions there, it'll take me to what I call the third step, which is, what do you want to do? And in this case, we're just going to single point. So we would choose that top one, but just keep in mind, I'll talk about how to add stuff to a route list in a few slides. And so we'll be kind of coming back to this step. But single point driving directions, this is the third step. And then when you tell it that, it's going to throw up a pop-up here that says which application do you want to use, Apple Maps, Google Maps, or Waze. And you can set your default application in the settings just by tapping up in the top right corner there. You see a more button. It's kind of hard to read on the slide, but it's a more button that has 3 dots on it. That's basically our settings. You can change, or not change, but you can set the default application so you can bypass this step every time. So really 3 steps is what you can get a single point driving direction down to. So going back to that, where I would have wanted, instead of single point, if I want to go on into routing, it's the same first 3 steps, except I choose routing. And it takes me to, I'm still on the map, but it puts a banner across the top there. And you can read that. It says one touch route mode is off. So I want to enable that if I'm going to create a route list. And that allows me to be in what we call one touch route mode. And I can now tap on with my finger on multiple rigs. I can add up to 10 to a route list. That's the maximum Google Maps will allow. But most people aren't driving to that many. They're going to 4 to 8 per day at most. But you can add those. And then the final step, you see down in the bottom right corner, there's a routing tab that actually has a badge there. The red badge number 4 shows how many I have in the list. And there they are, the 4 I've chosen. And it's as simple as that. You tap on that and you go to get driving directions. And then you're in Google Maps. I do want to point out that really the benefit to using routing is really when you're driving to more than 1 or 2 rigs per day. That's, I think, really important to know, because, you could, if you drive to 6 rigs in a day, you're doing the same 3 or 4 steps earlier, whereas here you could do 7 steps, create the route. You can optimize it. You can change the order of this, or you can optimize it based on the minimum miles it takes to get to all of those. You can also add a start and end point, and I'll show you in a second. You can actually add additional points in between your rigs, like say you're going to stop for lunch, that kind of thing. So the more locations you have in a route, the better you get optimization wise. And actually, if you care about ESG, which a lot of people do, and it's being scrutinized even more and more every day, you can chalk that up to being better optimized, being better ESG scores. Here's that settings screen, what that looks like. And I mentioned name locations. That's where you'd put something like lunch, or even maybe your house or work. A lot of people do start and end at the same location every day. So that's handy to do that. And that's where you also choose your default navigation app. So I would be amiss if I didn't mention a new feature we just released about 2 weeks ago, actually. So it's been out a full 2 weeks since February 1st, called Backroads Mode. It really benefits you to use this, especially if you are in areas with low connectivity, bad cell phone service. And I just want to go through a few details around that. So the app automatically will detect. You don't have to manually go into Backroads Mode. In other words, this pop-up will appear when you're completely disconnected. Maybe you're in airplane mode, or you're in between cell towers and it's just not enough bandwidth for the app to do what it needs to do. You want to enable that, and that's just easy, right? Tap on enable. What you're doing when you say enable Backroads Mode is you're actually telling it to essentially work offline, halt all the network calls that it makes behind the scenes. This is super valuable because the app's doing a lot of processing of data and making a lot of calls, but it also caches those locations on the app in the morning at 9:30 when or whenever you open it for the first time. I will say under that third bullet point is super important to remember that you don't want to stay in backroads mode more than 8 hours if you can, because of those two update windows at 9:30 Central and 6 p.m. If you miss one of those, you're out of date, right? So that's really important to remember. And just a call out to the YouTube again, watch this. It's a 7-minute video, but it goes into the nitty-gritty on backroads mode. I go into a lot more detail about what it does and how to use it. So really important there. So just a time check. We're about 20 minutes in, which I think we're right on schedule. As far as my presentation and demo goes, we're at halftime. I wish I'd done this before the Super Bowl, but hey, or during the Super Bowl, but hey, we're at halftime. So we've answered those first 2 questions, and I want to just remind you what those last questions are before I hop into the actual demo. I do plan on using the Rigs app here to demo how do I use Virtual Scout and Reports, and that's that screen on the left. And then I will show you the tablet version of our Intelligence mobile app to answer how can I process through all this information. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of our users who are using both for very different purposes, but you can install both of them on a single device, either your phone or your tablet, and you use the same login and password that you log into Enverus or the old Drilling Info web app. So just wanted to shout that out to you guys. And I mentioned that if time permitting, which I think we might have a minute or two, we will talk about the future of mobile, really just in a slide or two. Type your questions now if you have them. Adrian's going to help me host, or going to host by calling those out when we do have them. So we'll do that at the end.